When the sun dipped below the 7 hills of Rome, a different city came to life. A city of shadows and torchlight, of whispered secrets and raucous laughter. This is the story of ancient Rome after dark, a world far removed from the sober histories of senates and legions. This is the story of its parties. Forget what you think you know. Roman nightlife wasn't just about lavish banquets. It was a complex social theatre where fortunes were won and lost, and where power was displayed not in the forum, but in the dining room. From the emperor's gilded halls to the smoky back rooms of a working-class tavern, the night was when the true face of Rome was revealed. Let's start at the top, with the cena, the Roman dinner party. For the elite, this was the main event of the day. Guests would recline on couches, arranged in a strict hierarchy. The host occupied the place of honor, and where you were seated said everything about your social standing. A seat closer to the host meant you were in favor. A spot at the end of the table meant you were barely tolerated. But it wasn't just about the food, though that could be spectacular. Exotic dishes like flamingo tongues, stuffed dormice, and roasted peacock were designed to shock and impress. The real currency of the cena was conversation and entertainment. Poets would recite their latest works, philosophers would debate, and musicians would play. Acrobats, dancers, and even gladiators might perform between courses. It was a multi-sensory spectacle designed to showcase the host's wealth, taste, and influence. The wine flowed freely, often mixed with water and sometimes spices or even honey. But don't be mistaken, this wasn't just a casual drink. The Magister Bibendi, or Master of Drinking, would be appointed to decide the ratio of wine to water and how many cups each guest was required to drink. This controlled the pace of the evening, ensuring that the party didn't descend into chaos too quickly. It was a structured indulgence, a performance of excess within prescribed limits. These parties were also hotbeds of political maneuvering. A carefully placed word, an overheard conversation, a new alliance fidged over a cup of Falernian wine. This is how things got done in Rome. A successful dinner party could solidify a politician's career, while a poorly hosted one could be a social death sentence. It was networking on an epic scale, with the future of the Republic, and later the Empire, often being decided on a full stomach. Of course, not everyone in Rome was a senator or a nobleman. What about the other 99%? For the common plebeian, the night offered a different kind of escape. The city was a maze of narrow, unlit streets, and venturing out after dark was a risky proposition. But the allure of the popina, or tavern, was often too strong to resist. These were bustling, noisy places, filled with the smell of grilled sausages, cheap wine, and the sweat of the working class. Here, soldiers, sailors, shopkeepers, and artisans could forget the toil of the day. They played dice games, gambled away their meager earnings, and shared gossip far from the ears of their masters. While the elite were posturing on their couches, the common folk were finding genuine community in these crowded, vibrant spaces. These taverns were often more than just bars. Many doubled as brothels or inns, and they were frequently run by freedmen and women, former slaves who had earned their freedom. For them, the nightlife industry was a path to social mobility, a chance to build a life in a society that was rigidly stratified. Then there were the collegia, or guilds. These were social clubs for people in the same trade: bakers, boatmen, blacksmiths. They would pool their resources to hold their own banquets and festivals. These weren't as opulent as the aristocratic parties, but they were filled with a sense of brotherhood and solidarity. They would feast, honor their patron gods, and make provisions for members who fell on hard times. It was a vital social safety net, and the parties were the glue that held it all together. But the night also held a darker side. For some emperors, the night was a playground for their cruelest impulses. Think of Caligula or Nero. Their private parties became legendary for their debauchery and depravity, blurring the line between celebration and horror. These weren't just about displaying wealth. They were about demonstrating absolute, terrifying power, the ability to command, to humiliate, and even to kill, all under the guise of entertainment. The stories that trickled out from these imperial palaces served as a chilling reminder to all of Rome: the emperor could do whatever he wanted. And let's not forget the private celebrations that marked the milestones of a Roman's life. A wedding was a day-long affair, culminating in a torchlit procession that led the bride to her new home, accompanied by songs and jokes. Funerals, too, involved a procession and a feast to honor the dead. Even for the poorest Romans, these rituals were deeply important, connecting them to their ancestors and their community. But perhaps the most spectacular of all Roman celebrations was the Saturnalia. Held in December, this was a week-long festival where all the normal rules of society were turned upside down. Slaves were served by their masters, gambling was permitted in public, and a king of the Saturnalia was chosen by lot to preside over the chaos. It was a citywide party, a release valve for the pressures of Roman life. The streets were filled with people shouting Io, Saturnalia, exchanging gifts and feasting. It was a time when everyone, from the emperor to the lowest slave, was united in a spirit of revelry. So, when we look at ancient Rome, we must look beyond the marble columns and the grand amphitheatres. We must look into the flickering torchlight of its dining halls and the crowded corners of its taverns. Because it was here, in the night, that the true Roman spirit was forged. A spirit of ambition and indulgence, of community and cruelty, of rigid order and chaotic freedom. The Roman night was a mirror, reflecting the power, the people, and the paradoxes of the greatest empire the world has ever known. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey into Rome's past. If you enjoyed this glimpse into life after dark, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.